So before we begin harvesting these onions, these are candy onions. They're a intermediate day onion, I believe. If you've grown onions before, you know that where you live in the country will determine what kind of onions will do best in your climate. Utah, where I live, we're intermediate, but we're also long day onion zones. So you can grow either one here and do quite well. Short day onions don't do well here, but these candy onions have done really well. I'll be lucky to get 3 to 4 months storage out of them, though. That's the downside to them. If you want a good storage onion, I suggest the Patterson onion, which I'm going to grow next year as well as these candy onions. You can get up to a year storage life out of those. So that's the plan for next year, but I wanted to give these candy onions a try. This is the first time I've grown these. They're really sweet, really delicious. So let's get harvesting here. So as you've heard me talk before in previous videos, we have a very large active deer population in my neighborhood, which is why I need these wires around my fruit trees. Anything that the deer will eat, which is pretty much everything, we have to cage or protect behind a fence. So I'm gonna go ahead and unbutton this fence, and then we'll get to harvesting these onions. When you harvest onions, if you've got good loose soil, you can just reach down and just kind of tease them up out of the ground a little bit. Shake as much dirt off as possible. Usually you'd want the grass, not the grass. You'd want the soil a little drier than this. See how that's sticking to the onion a little bit? Unfortunately, I didn't turn the sprinkling system off last night, so the ground is still a little bit wet. There you go, it's a pretty good size onion. It's about as big as a baseball. So we'll get all these pulled, harvested. We'll put them in the wheelbarrow with Izzy's help. Thank you. And we'll just keep working around this tree and move on to the next. Pretty happy with the way these have turned out. The place I got the plants from in Texas said these are great for anyone who's struggled to grow onions before, that they have a really good strong root system, and as you can tell, they really do. I don't think I've seen a root system that deep in any of the other varieties that I've grown over the years. So this is turning out to be a really good onion. Like I say, the only downside is the storage life on these. If you get 4 months, you're doing great, but we're going to try and push it and just see how much we can get out of them, and eat a lot of onions in the next 3 to 4 months. All of them pretty good sized onions. Pretty happy with the yield so far. I'll go ahead and get these loaded up in the wheelbarrow and then work my way over to the next 2 trees that also have these candy onions growing around them. And we'll go from there and then start the curing process. Kind of see, I got a young man that works for me at my full-time job who raises rabbits. I have a never-ending supply of rabbit manure, which is awesome. If you've never tried that in your garden, highly recommend it. Rabbit manure is one of those things that really doesn't need to compost before you put it in your garden. It's not going to burn your plants, and it introduces a lot of nitrogen slowly and gently into the soil. I'm just lucky to have a really good source that's local and close, and I get it for free, which is even better. That's a dandy onion there. Getting close to softball size with that one. Anyway, let me finish harvesting these, and then we'll show you the final number and get the curing process going in just a minute. One thing I like to do is, once I get the onions harvested out of a bed, I like to till the soil up, get that rabbit manure that I've been top dressing all summer with, get that incorporated into the soil so it can decompose over the winter and enrich the soil for next year. You can see I got a little help. This little lady's gonna do my job for me. I'll sit back here and let her sit back here and see if she can find anything yummy in there for her. Free labor is always good, right? So out of the first bed, if you count the little guys, we got 52 onions out of that much space. I'd say that's a pretty good return for the amount of space we tied up with onions this year. So we've got enough for one onion a week. Of course, they won't last that long. So we're back, gonna do the second bed right now. My wife came home and found me working without my sling. I got into a little bit of trouble. Had an industrial accident at work and they rebuilt my shoulder. I've still got 4 more weeks of this stupid thing. It's driving me crazy. But I'm trying to be a good boy and follow doctor's orders. So let's get started on doing this second one. And we'll peel this away and get these big guys harvested here. Do the same thing I did to the first bed. Like I said, this is kind of a pain to have to do this, but I like deer. I like to hunt deer. I like to see deer in my backyard. I don't shoot those ones. We can probably just open this up and not have to take it completely off. You can see some of these onions, like this one was left in from last year, just to get some seed. I'm a big proponent of free seeds, free vegetables when they grow. Normally what I'll do is I'll just kind of take this and shake it down just over the lip of the hollow here, so it still gets irrigation from my lawn sprinklers and get some wild onions, well, free onions. We'll do that when they dry out a little more. There again, just kind of tease that little guy right out of the soil. That's a good sized onion. Get rid of these while we're in here. Nobody likes weeds. As you can tell with the background here, I have a lot of oak brush. Really hard to get rid of once it gets established. I just pull these back and get as much root as I can a few times a year, and just try to keep ahead of it a little bit. It'll take over if you let it. Sometimes you need a little help. So here you go. These onions come out really easy in this soft soil. Probably won't get 52 out of this bed, but I don't know, maybe 30 or so. There's one of those ones from last year that I just pulled the head off of. You can see you're not going to get much of an onion with it. You can still eat those, but they're not going to store well because they've got this big, thick neck on them. When they cure, you want this neck to shrivel up tight, just like that one's kind of done naturally. There's still a little moist in there, so it has a little ways to go. But that one would not store. There's no way that's gonna shrink down and seal off that onion bulb. So we'll eat that one fairly soon. That's another one. Good solid big onion. I think the chickens are a little excited to get in here and scratch around. Look at that root system on that onion. I tell you, these candy onions really put the roots down good and deep. They're heavy feeders. They need a lot of nitrogen during the summer to keep going. They love water, which is another reason I plant them in these beds, because I know they get a steady supply of water with the sprinkling system on the lawn. So there's another advantage to growing them around your fruit trees, besides bug protection and making use of space. Looks like we got a couple outside the fence here. If they don't fall on my face, I'll get them. So there you go, that's the second bed harvested. I won't bore you to death by counting them, but I would say 30, 35 onions in that bed. So I'll do the same thing I did with that last bed. I'll just scratch this up good, remove this oak brush, any weeds. I'll probably take out this big sunflower that volunteered. My wife's not a fan of these. I like them, she doesn't. So it's gonna go, she wins. And then I'll get this all tilled up and get it ready for winter and put the deer fence back on. We'll be good to go. So I think I identified that first apple tree as a Honeycrisp. That one's actually a Fuji. This is the Honeycrisp. You can see we got a couple of nice sized apples on there. You can tell it's starting to get that pink streak down it like the Honeycrisp do. So we haven't had any worms, any bugs on here, which means the onions did their job. This one, this is a plum tree. I believe, I still have the tag on here. I think it's Satsuma. Yeah, Satsuma plum. They're the kind that have the red flesh on the inside. Absolutely love these trees. Little backstory, my dad had one of these, really big and mature, put out a lot of fruit. Well, one day I was about 12, decided to play some firecrackers and was throwing them in the garbage cans that were underneath this tree, and unfortunately torched the garbage and torched his favorite plum tree. So I grew this in honor of you, Dad. I will dedicate the first fruits of this tree to you. So this chicken matches the dirt really well. Didn't know she was in there, and I closed this up. I think she'd be okay with it, but we're gonna let her out. Come on. No, come on. Let's go. Thank you. Since I'm the incredible one-armed man, rather than tie wire, I'm just gonna use zip ties to put these back together. And this one's ready for winter, minus that beautiful sunflower that was in there. And stay tuned, we'll move on to the next bed in just a minute. This is how Izzy thinks she's helping. That'll take her a minute. Okay. So here we are, the third and final bed. As you can tell, we've got a lot of oak brush going on in here. I'm probably gonna have to go at this with a shovel, dig it out. I think a little too much competition for sunshine as well as nutrients. Maybe hindered the growth of these a little bit. This is definitely the smallest, the fewest onions out of all three beds. But still, 20, 25 onions, medium sized. So we'll get them out of the ground and see what we got. That's a big old bush there. Lots of little guys, but once they cure off, they should store as well as the big ones. Even better, they'll dry quicker. That's not an onion. It's not an onion. Let's see what she does. No. Sorry. All right, so there you go. Not nearly as good a harvest out of that one. 9. 30. So we got 30 onions. You know, medium size. Kind of like what you'd get in a store. So there you go. We'll dry these with the rest of them. So now you've got your onions harvested. You've got most of the dirt brushed off. You have to cure them. So 3 things to remember when you're curing your onions. You want low humidity, you want cool, and you want good airflow. So the onion will dry nice and completely. Last year I actually did it underneath my lean-to barn out here on some straw bales. Worked just fine. It stayed, the air circulated real well. It was fairly cool, but it did get some sun on them. Didn't really affect the storage on that type of onion. These I'm going to be really careful so I can get as much storage time out of these as I can. So a couple of different ways I do it. These are the milk crates and the other crates that I actually store them in. So what I do is I turn them upside down, stick the stalks down through, which is easy to do with these stalks that are already withered, but not real easy with one hand, as you can tell. Anyway, that's the general idea for that. Another way you can do it is to just lay these onions in a tray like this. They don't need to be upside down, but good airflow is what you're looking for. So you don't want to really pile these up in a big old heaping mass. Just one row will do the trick. Get them nice and dry and cured. So what you're looking for when these onions are cured is this neck. It will no longer be green. It'll be brown like this one, and it'll be closed off. See, this one's still really, really moist and wet. So I really like to do it this way. It lets any of the moisture flow out of the onion, let gravity help you get the moisture out of the onion. Then when this is brown and closed off good and tight, I take and I clip them about 1 inch above, and then I turn them and set them like this and let this top part scab over and heal. And that helps protect the onions, and I think it gives you a little more storage life as well. So we'll do this. We'll let these sit for about 10 days like this, flip them over, trim them, and let them go for another 5-6 days like that before we actually put them in the crates and store them for the winter. So I'll get going with this, and we'll show you the final product when they're all laid out and all getting ready to cure, and we'll go from there. So we've got the onions all out in racks, getting ready to dry. We've got spacing around them. Again, the 3 things, they're going to be in the garage. They'll be dark. It'll be fairly cool. Hopefully, the next 2 days are supposed to cool down to mid-80s during the day. So it should stay fairly cool in here. If not, we can always move them down to the basement where it'll be a little cooler. A little higher humidity in the basement, but, you know, give and take. You do what you got to do to make it work. So airflow in the garage, not a lot of airflow. My solution is just crank up the fan. Keep the air flowing around the onions so it'll dry out. And we'll keep them like this for about 10 days, 2 weeks. And then we'll flip them over, cut the tops, set them on the root side down. We'll also trim the roots off when they get nice and brittle and dry. And then flip them over, let them go for another week like that. Get that top where we've clipped to seal off so we can't squeeze any more moisture out of it. And then they'll be ready to go into storage. We'll flip these crates over, put them in the crates, put a little straw between each layer of onion, and they'll store for hopefully 4 months. So now that we've got all our yellow onions, the candy onions harvested, I still have a bunch of these white onions. You can see some of these have fallen over. That's a good sign that onion's done growing. However, we do have quite a few that are still upright, that are still growing. We'll let those continue to grow until they fall over. That tells us that they're ready to harvest. Got a bunch here in this flower bed, also along this big bed out front, all the way around the ring. I've got white onions planted as well. Got these from the same supplier, Dixondale Farms in Texas. White variety, can't remember the name of it, but they're a good intermediate day onion, and they do well in our climate. So once we get those harvested and dried off, stored, we'll be set for onions for a while. So you can store them in the crates like I was explaining, put them in onion bags, however you want to store them. You know, just follow those 3 basic rules: cool, dark, and air circulation, at least while they're curing. And then I don't think the circulation matters as much once they're in storage, but keep them dark and cool. So that's it for today. Thanks for stopping by. Hit that subscribe button and give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video, and we'll see you next time.